I'm Lisa Ruth, CEO of CTC International Group, and joining me today is Chad Jenkins of the Jenkins Group. Chad, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Lisa.
Yeah, it's great. I want to talk today, when I talk to my clients, I always emphasize this overlap or relationship between intelligence, security, and prevention. And for example, even if you talk about an alarm system, I say that's great, but if you're worried about your employees embezzling funds, that's not going to help. You've got to look at the risk first. And unfortunately, one of the emerging risks we're seeing is this active shooter situation. So, and I know that's something you're very familiar with.
Right.
In your opinion, what are some things that an institution, a school, somebody really needs to do to be ready for that, for an active shooter?
Yeah, that's a great question, Lisa. With the emerging threat of active shooter situations taking place throughout the world and here in the United States, right now corporations and CEOs and C-level individuals of those corporations are identifying that they need their employees to have a plan in the event that takes place and actions on during that event, and then really looking at the prevention aspect prior to or preparing in the event that it does happen. And on that, really, that's an executive level management policies and procedures that need to be implemented prior to it happening. So God forbid it does happen, you have some type of plan in place to activate. A plan now is better than no plan in the event that it takes place.
And I think that what you're saying is what we're seeing a lot of people trying to prepare for that. But something a few months ago, obviously, we had a problem in Fort Lauderdale, active shooter situation. What do you do with that? You can't train passengers, obviously. Your employees need to be ready, but how does something like an airport prepare? How do you do that?
Right, with TSA and then whatever local municipality is, Broward Sheriff's Department was the overarching security at that location. In the event of those catastrophic active shooter situations taking place, whether it's a customer, a client, a guest, somebody getting ready to travel, they're going to look at the employees at that location and follow suit. So if you're trained in an active shooter as an employee at an airport, you can be sure those passengers are going to look to you for guidance. And the FBI and DHS has come out with the run, hide, fight mentality. And it's a great mentality. It needs to be expounded upon. People need to put themselves in those mental scenarios before it happens so that they have a plan to implement if it does come to fruition. But oftentimes, if you're an employee or an executive or a manager, everybody below you is going to be looking at you. So you really have to be on your A game in those events.
Run, hide, fight. Can you very briefly tell us what that is?
So run, hide, fight, FBI and DHS together came up with that easy memorization to give to individuals, citizens of our country, to allow them to have a plan if it takes place. Really what it goes to, in the event, an active shooter situation, you hear shots fired at a location, they have taught that running is your primary option. If you cannot run and get away from the threat, then try to hide. And then at the end-all be-all cost, if you're not able to hide, fight as the last resort for your life. That's great to the masses and as a general rule of thumb. However, what we do at Jenkins Group is really expound upon that, because at a tactical level, in the event that something were to take place, there will be instances and can be instances where you might need to hide or you might need to fight prior to running as a first option. It's not a sequential order of succession. It's really an assessment of what the threat is to you and where you are at that specific location, and then determining whether you run, hide, or fight, and making that decision and going with it. So that's really what we try to implement with our training and with our briefings of the active shooter threat to employees and corporations.
So even in this case, it goes back to the intelligence and the analysis. You have to look at the exact situation with that run, hide, fight in mind, but you may have to hide and then run, depending on the situation.
Right, and really what it comes down to is mentally. It is 90% mental and 10% the physical act of implementing that plan, whatever it may be. When you have a catastrophic event take place, getting into that mental mindset that you can survive this and that you will make it home to your loved ones, to your children, to whoever that might be, and getting into that survival mindset, that's really key to overcoming an active shooter threat.
So would you say that's the one thing, if you're an average person in an active shooter situation, split-second decision, what do you do first?
Yeah, you assess the situation. You're going to take that tactical pause, 3 to 5 seconds, no more than that, to assess where your location is, where the threat is, what your avenues of escape route could be. If you were to go ahead and lock down or hide, okay, do you have a fortified location that you can truly hide? And then by all means, you know, what we were taught in the FBI day one at the FBI Academy is greet everybody with $1 million smile, but have a plan to kill them. So if you have to implement that, be ready to go actions on, because you're fighting for your life. And that's what it really comes down to. And what we teach our, you know, whoever we're providing the instruction to, is really giving them that mental confidence that they can adapt and overcome to whatever situation they're presented with.
Well, and I think the important point you just made is just that you can survive this.
Right.
There are things you can do. Come to the Jenkins Group, get some training, really, for one thing, because it's also not a one-time thing. You have to drill it and be prepared.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's reoccurring and making it a common denominator in your way of life for your employees, and that's going to give them confidence and competence, no matter where they are, whether they're at the employee setting where they're working or whether they're out in public. The threat, you don't know. You can't prevent the unpredictable, but you can prepare for it, and that's what we try to do.
Great. Well, thanks, Chad. I really appreciate you talking to us.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks for having me on.
And thank you for watching.